Hi guys, MC Stu here, back again with another concept guide. This time I'm going to be going over basic tanking concepts. Not necessarily how to build the tank per se, but the things that need to be focused on and considered when you build a tank. So I'll start with, I've seen, and myself included, back before I was taught by other players that knew what they were doing, tried to put together tanks and focus purely on, hull and survivability, and were able to put together builds that, yes, basically could not die, but didn't give any consideration to threat generation, gave up too much damage output potential. And so at the end of the day, as Augie would say, it was over-tanked, meaning you're not doing anything to help your team other than not dying. And purely not dying basically means you're not there. So I just wanted to go over some basic concepts. I'm going to go over or demonstrate a couple of the builds that I have. The first one I'm going to go over, it's something I just put together on one of my tactical characters. I have a main character that is built purely for tanking. It's an engineering build. You can do this with any. In fact, the three that I'm going to show will all differ in class. So you can see, from the budget end to the higher end. And I'll also, right off the bat, put out there that I am not the best tank. I do not know everything about it. Everything that I've put together, I've taken from others like Augmented, Dictator, Kowalski, STO 1701. They're all excellent when it comes to building this and really understanding the nitty gritty. But I thought I might be able to give a little bit of help to people that have no idea, and from the perspective of someone that's still learning themselves. So the main thing that pretty much every tank is going to need is a particular ship. This is the only item that's going to cost you real money, and that's going to be the the Narenda class support cruiser, and I will show you that here. The reason for this is it comes with a trait, history will remember, and I have not seen any successful tanks be able to run elite contact without having this. And that is this ship here. Other than this ship, everything else can be earned in game, grinded out for, no money has to be spent. So, if you wait for a sale, you can spend $20 plus, get this ship, and that is the one thing that you'll build your tank around. You can use this ship as the tank. I will demonstrate that on my free-to-play account. I'm using this, and so I know I just said free-to-play account and a money ship here, and I was actually able to get this ship on my free-to-play account from one of the events where you got a one of the ship tokens that you could get any tier 6, not new category, tier 6 ship. So that's how I got that on that account. So like I said, this particular ship will work as a tank, and I've been able to do elite content using it. The main reason for it, and it's the first thing I'll go over, and then I'll just go into more of kind of the concept stuff about it, but is the trait that it comes with, and that's history will remember. So every time you're damaged by a foe, you'll gain 1 stack of this, and this is going to be plus 1% all damage, 1% hull gen, increased maximum hull, and threat generation. So that's basically plus 30% to those first 3 things, and let's see, what did this stack? And on the threat generation, 300%. So you get into combat and you're hit by 30 different bad guys, you'll max this out. On an ISE, that'll probably take you, I don't know, 30-40 seconds. Once you move on to the first transformer, you'll probably max this out. This is the cornerstone of building a good tank, as far as I have seen. So threat generation, survivability. You have to have both of those. You can have the survivability, but if you're not attracting the threat, then you're not helping your team. So the main goal of your tank is to get all the bad guys to shoot at you instead of the rest of your team, while the rest of your team can focus on the DPS or science control, depending on what you're running, and get the job done, get the TFO beat in as fast a time as possible. So threat, survivability, they have to go together. You can have the threat or the survivability without the threat and you're not helping. You can have the threat without the survivability, but then you're dying, and if you're dead, you're no longer getting the threat and you're not helping your team. So you want to build around the threat and being able to survive receiving that threat. So let's talk about the survivability, and then we'll talk about the threat. So for survivability, there's a couple items that you'll need to have. So the main one, like I said, is going to be that trait history we'll remember. The other items that are must-haves are going to be there's a Zindi duty officer. Hura is his name. Here he is there. And what he does is gives you additional hull and protection when you use the reverse shield polarity. So when you're running an ISE and you're, say, going to the end in between the gate and the attack cube, you're going to get a barrage of torpedoes, and you will die if you are not activating this ability with this duty officer. So must have. Next is going to be the Gamma Rep core and shield. Both are good items by themselves, but the two-piece set, we don't want to discard it. The two-piece set is going to give you an additional 120% regen, and that scales with your hull size. And I only have a video of this particular character, even though it's not my main character, which I'll play at the end, because on my tanking character I have everything done except I did not have this core, which I do have now. And I have to tell you that my engineer I built specifically for tanking, she has, you know, a different ship that's even better suited in my opinion for it, with some additional consoles. This is a DPS tune that I happen to have that trait on, and I just threw it all in here, and it almost outperformed. Well, it did outperform from a DPS standpoint, but from a survivability standpoint, it outperformed the character that was built for tanking. And the main difference was not having this two-piece set. Once I put that on there, it was a night and day difference, which I was just able to do the other day after accidentally buying the shield twice, which was really irritating. So must have on these two items, shield and core from the Gamma Rep. And then lastly are colony tactical consoles. So there's a bunch of different flavors, obviously, depending on what kind of build you're running. This is an anti-proton build. And when you are, this is 20% chance to self amplification. So you gain these stacks for entering a specific energy firing mode. So fire at will give you the 25% chance for the additional hull healing and for additional shield healing. I do not, even though my shields are high, this is due to the set that we're running here. I have no points in shields. I'm not doing anything on purpose. There might be some stuff in here that are buffing shields a little bit to buff this. The regen, I don't care. Power settings on the shields are at 0. Most of the DPS runs we do are against the Borg, and the shields just don't matter. So survivability is really about resistance. You have a pool of hit points, and you're taking damage, and your resistance rating is going to determine how fast that pool of hit points disappears. So, 35%, across the board is probably the minimum, I would say, unless you're piloting real well and clicking the right things at the right time. 40 and up will put you in a really good spot. And that's not real hard to do, depending on, what you pick in your shield tree and your skill tree. And then this item right here, the Trilithium D, this is from a mission. It's free to get. You just play the mission, pick it up, and it is a great survival console. So it gives you plus 17.5 for all resistance ratings. Gives you additional to your hull and additional to your shield. So this is bumping my shields, but again, I don't even care about that. The hull and the resistance rating is really what's important. Auxiliary power it gives you as well, and depending on how you build, that will make a difference, as you'll see on my free-to-play, because I'm not using a aux to bat build on that. So I'm using some other consoles that need additional auxiliary to get more critical severity. Okay, so that's your basic items you need for your survivability. In terms of threat, you're going to need a ship that's going to have some command abilities, namely attract fire. There's quite a few ships that have that. Must have this. This is going to work in conjunction with your threatening stance and running the Miracle Worker skill set. So you need to have Miracle Worker, and then I'm running Strategist with the rest of this. This is mostly for being able to put out some damage. So attract fire, threatening stance, you need those two. Those are going to be your main threat generators. When you fill out your skill tree, you're going to want to make sure that you're choosing things like threat control. This works both ways. So if you're in a DPS setup and you're not running the threatening stance, then this will give you less threat, which is a good thing. If you're running a tank and you're running threatening stance, it gives you another 100%. So on your skill tree, that's basically one of the main things on top of taking, like on my main tank build tune, I'm taking all three of these for additional resistance. The rest of this kind of depends on how you want to play. If you're mixing science in, like I said, this is my DPS tune, so I went heavy on that. That's mainly how I play this tune. May want to go a little bit more on hull and some on regen. All of these kind of regen stats are going to help when your colony consoles proc and all your other traits proc that are going to keep you alive. On traits, that's minus threat generation. That shouldn't be there. So there's one that gives you additional threat generation, and I think outgoing hull heal. So this should actually be here. So anything that's going to give you additional threat, a lot of this stuff that gives you additional threat is also going to give you some sort of extra in the way of survivability. Whether that's helpful or not in every situation, may depend. If it gave me a bunch of shield regen, I mean, that really doesn't make any difference to me. So survivability and threat. Lastly, on threat, your damage output. You want to touch as many bad guys as you can. You're saying, hey, look at me, don't look at my team. So fire at will is a must. And using the entwined tactical matrices is helpful. Using that with fire at will, you're basically able to keep fire at will up constantly. This trait, when I click torpedo spread, it gives me fire at will 1, and when that comes off cooldown, I can use the fire at will 3. I'm using aux to bat to cool those down. You can also use photonic officer, as I'll demonstrate. And then the more damage you can do on top of that, the more damage, the more people you're touching is kind of that last bit of threat that'll help get everybody looking at you instead of your team, and by doing damage, you're helping the team move along and progress through the TFO. So survivability, threat, damage, but damage is really a subcategory of threat, really, and helping your team just in general. Lastly is going to be piloting. Being where you need to be, staying close to your team is also important. When I'm DPSing and I'm running with somebody else that's tanking, I'm trying to stay close to that tank. If I get too far away from them in elite content and I find myself in the middle of a bunch of spheres, I'm dead right away. So it's important for the tank to stay with the group. It's also important for all the people in the group to stay within range of that tank, if possible. If they get out of range of that tank, they become the focus of attention of any bad guys around them, and the tank is unable to help them. I'm not going to go through every different little bit of this because a lot of it just has to do with the way I built this particular build. I built this around the bowels anti-proton beams. I'm using the 2-piece for that. The main reason is because of the refraction. I can touch even more bad guys. It's not a must, but as of right now, I think these weapons are the best for tanking. Again, because they refract from one target to another, they'll reach out farther than what you normally can, and you're able to get the attention of more bad guys. So that's why I went this direction. So I'm just going to jump over to my engineer and then to my free-to-play just real quick. I'm just a quick view of those just so you can kind of see how those are kind of put together, also to show. I mean, I know on some of these there's a lot of gold and it looks unreachable, and I have a lot of lobby stuff in here, but on my free to play I don't, and I'm able to do 150, 130 DPS on an elite run and keep my whole team alive and do pretty well, generating that threat and taking most of the damage. So you do not have to have all this gold and spend a whole bunch of money and grind like crazy. You do have to do some grinding, but there ain't anything in the game where you where you don't have to, unless you want to spend a bunch of money. So let's jump over to those guys, take a look, and then I'll go ahead and play the run that I recorded on for this tactical character that I was running in a tank. All right, so here's my engineer. She is my main tanking character, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess now, you can save the loadouts that also include your traits. Had that been in effect for years, I probably wouldn't have multiple characters that do different things. So I'm finding now certain characters have certain traits and special ships that are not account unlocks that I wish were just all on one. I would have went with a Romulan alien tactical officer and did everything with it. But anyways, that's a whole nother video. So on this build, it's very similar. I'm using the same weapons, like I said. These weapons right now are probably the best out there. Again, I don't want to get into all the specifics about why I'm using this torpedo and all these other different things. Basically, what I'm trying to do is attract as much threat as possible, make sure I don't die, and put out as much damage, touch as many enemies as I can. The main difference, like on this ship, is this is a three-piece set from all of the flagships. And this gives some really good set bonus for all three, which is really the main reason. And the individual clickies, at least two of them, are excellent damage consoles. So they give you firing haste, which again, you can touch more people, and also bonus damage. And then the three-piece gives you quite a bit of hull healing and bonus damage. I got this from the Legendary bundle. My wife got it for me for my birthday. Luckily, that all coincided. So that's why I have this. Most people are probably not going to have all of these ships. Obviously, you would need the first one we discussed for History Will Remember, and then 3 other ships, and you're getting into the hundreds of dollars. So you don't have to have this. This is just happened to be what I have, and this is my main tanking character. On average, I can do 200 to 150. I'm sorry, 250 to 300,000 DPS, not die, and attract low 80% of all the damage. Guys like Stu 1701 or Yowalski, they're getting up into the 90s. And to be completely honest, I need to ask them about that because I don't know how they're doing it, but they are just on a whole nother level when it comes to the tanking. So again, this is a high-end tank and costs quite a bit of money, but I just wanted to show it off. I'm pretty proud of it. But in any case, let's jump over to my free-to-play account so you can see that there's hope, even if you don't want to spend any money other than that one ship, unless you have an event token. All right, this is my free-to-play account. This is the actual Narenda ship that the History Will Remember comes off of. It makes for a good tanking ship as well. I happen to really like the way it looks. This is the fleet version of it. Fleet version of any of the tier 6 ships that are available are always going to be better. You have to have, obviously, you can buy the fleet version without owning the ship, but you can get it for less modules, and you will not get the trait if you don't get the tier 6. So anyways, so let's jump into this. So this is a Polaron build, and most of this stuff is, so this was crafted. This is from a mission home, the end of the Gamma arc, along with the torpedo. I'm using the 3-piece for some crit severity and crit chance, and then the rest is Polaron rep gear. Some of them have procs that'll heal you. I don't know if they really do a lot, but they do have a little bit of extra bonus damage modifiers when you get up to the tier 6 on those. And then a lot of the rest of this stuff is mission reward as well. So these items here, mission rewards. The rest of it's rep gear, and I do have one Lobby piece, which is new for me. I just added this. It was tanking just fine before, but now I'm able to put out a little bit more damage. So as you can see, the main staples are here. You have the core and the shield. You have the Tritium D. and you have on this one, I'm only running one of the consoles from the colony, tactical consoles, and then I'm running History Will Remember. I don't even have all the trait slots open. Most of these are stock traits. I've saved up and got a couple other ones from grinding out, and then I'm also running the Duty Officer. So they have those 4 items, or 6 items if counting the core and the shield separately. And so basically with those 6 items, you build the rest of it around however you can. I don't have bowel weapons on here. I'm going to try that. I'm not going to have the 2-piece Lobby set for it, but with the refraction, I'm still going to touch more people, even though the 2-piece, it gives you an extra refraction on top of that where you can touch even more bad guys. But even without this, I ran one earlier, and I think I did just under 100k. That was a pug run. There was somebody else in there taking quite a bit of damage. I've done it. That was earlier today. I've done it with Augie and some of these other guys that are big DPSers, and I didn't score the same kind of numbers I did on my main account, but kept everybody alive. Got the vast majority of all the threat. Didn't die, so I did my job. Attract that fire, keep it off of everybody else. So again, just to kind of recap, threat and survival, you need both. Having just one or the other is not going to work. You're either just going to die, or you're not going to die, but you're not going to contribute in any way because they'll all be ignoring you because you're not doing any damage either. And then lastly is damage, and that's really, like I said, a subcategory of threat. Doing more damage helps get more of that threat. Touching more of the bad guys get you more of that threat, and it helps the team progress through the TFO. So I think I covered everything there. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to go ahead and play the run for you and show the parse for my tactical character on my main account, just to demonstrate how that ship did. That one is basically a mid-tier build. It does have a lot of gold and a lot of Lobby stuff. Most of it's DPS related, but again, it just kind of shows, I mean, as long as you have those 6 items, you can kind of build everything else out around the rest of it for whatever it is you want to do. I do think, you got to stick with beams, doing a torp build or something like that. A lot of these things won't proc on that. It's not undoable. It's out of my skill set or knowledge of doing. Same thing with cannons, scatter volley 3, I think only targets 3 or 4 targets, so you're just touching less people. You could still generate the threat, with a lot of these traits, personal space traits, and other items, but it's just not going to be as good as a beam fire at will build. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back over, and we'll do the run and see how that goes.
The situation is grim.
All right, so here's our parse for that run, and Augmented Dictator killed it like always. Guy's awesome. I'm gonna link his YouTube channel and Twitch down in the description. Definitely check him out. He's always on the cutting edge of the high-end builds, and it's not always just DPS. I mean, somehow he always ends up doing that, but he gets very creative. I mean, there's just hundreds of different builds that you can do that perform really well and are a lot of fun, and he does a really good job of putting those together and explaining them. So I definitely encourage you to go check him out. So on that one, I did 260, which is an excellent run in my opinion. Like I said, some of these other guys that are tanking are hitting the 300s all the time. I will every now and then. But in any case, the important stuff here. So let's see. So attacks in total damage percentage. So I was at 73 on this, which isn't bad. I mean, it's good. Everyone else was pretty spread evenly. Augie always takes quite a bit. Dark Speaker here. Just because of the damage he's putting out on my engineering tune. Like I said, I'm getting to the low 80%. I'd like to be getting into the 90s, and I got to figure out how do I attract more attention. I don't know if there's maybe some traits or things that I'm missing, or personal space traits or something that'll get me more threat, or if I just need to be pushing more damage somehow. In any case, that's that's my next goal on the tanking stuff. So this is really that number that you want to be as high as possible. That means you're taking all the damage and the rest of your team is not. Let's dig into the breakdown here. So my top damage getter is the Chemosite, and that is a something that procs heavily off of the Baul weapons, the refraction that it does. So I mean, I don't know how long that's going to stay around, because it's a huge number. Hopefully it does. But in any case, so this is kind of the breakdown. Like I said, the damage and the specifics on the build's not exactly what I'm really trying to get across in this video. But in any case, this is how this turned out. So not bad. 260 on the DPS, total damage 36 million. So not bad at all. This number is your threat per second, and I've seen some of these guys get this up into the 20,000 plus range. I scratch it here and there, but higher this number is, that's what you're looking for. Hit buy rate, we want to see this at 99%, or 100% really would be best. So that means there was 4% of the enemy that did not fire at me, and that's where most of my team took their damage from. So those are your two numbers. If you're parsing, you want to look at is your damage percentage in, your threat generation, and your hit buy rate are the things that you want to focus on there. So all right, well, I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. If you like the video, please give me a subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I'm going to list a couple of other STO streamers and content creators that are excellent, good information, and also just entertaining. Check in often. I appreciate you watching the video.